Thanks, folks, for coming in, and I know it's late evening. So a little bit about myself before getting started, okay? I am Subhadra Parthasarathy. I'm part of Deloitte's applied AI practice. So what I do is I'm a data scientist by profession, and I'm a computational linguist. That means I worked with anything that is related to language and language-based AI solutions. Over the last 20 years, I have been building advanced analytics, data science, and AI-based programs for complex and large engagements in enterprises. And my expertise stems mainly from scaling, innovation, and driving transformative programs, especially in new technology capabilities in highly regulated environments where there's a lot of compliance that's involved. So what I want to cover as part of the agenda today is, let me use the clicker. Okay. What I wanted to cover is, especially in the biopharma phase, the opportunities that have opened up to apply AI and machine learning, the challenges that they have in overcoming that, and how Databricks, as our key partner, has been front and forefront in helping us establish that, along with, obviously, there are several other hyperscalers we use in that ecosystem. And then I want to deep dive into 3 specific use cases wherein we have successfully applied and solved them for our customers, right? With that, let me get started. Post-pandemic, especially in biopharma, they're so open to pursue AI and machine learning. It's no longer a buzzword, and what's happening is R&D organizations are using AI machine learning to get started with how they can bring those drugs and vaccines to market, and we have seen that as a proof in how those COVID vaccines have been brought to market, right? And I, in my own realm, as I mentioned to you in my intro, working with unstructured language, unstructured content processing, see a multitude of opportunities in this space. So if you understand about the protocol design and the study-related, study is nothing but like clinical study documents, there's a lot of opportunity there where you can extract information from these historical study documents. And once those informations are like inclusion, exclusion, criteria extraction, endpoint extraction, it's also a lot of information about people who have been part of study, the study logistics information extraction, and the complexity of information that is presented to the participants in a particular study. What that helps is, like, can the information presented to people be simplified so that you can recruit more people to be part of clinical trials? How transparent is this information that is presented to participants so that they can join these trials, and the predictability of that? And you may have heard of OpenAI and the large language models, natural language generation, and these have been used predominantly in the dossier creation, which is like the huge documents, which are like 200-page documents that need to be prepared by pharma companies to be submitted to FDA. And that's something AI is being used. There's so many more plethora of opportunities there waiting to be explored. In all places, businesses know where to play, how to get started, all that. But what happens is the ecosystem, IT, are not exactly adaptable and malleable, ductable to the changing business needs, right? So sometimes they're not advised, business is not advised to pick the right kind of POCs. And that POC means the proof of concepts. And even when they pick the right kind of proof of concepts, they are not reaching the production. That means they are not able to get the ROI or investments for what they make, right? They make investments in AI and machine learning, and they're not able to reap those value in those investments. So it's like you have created or built this huge aircraft, but you don't have the runway or you don't have the launch pad to get blast off, right? So the IT departments have to deal with compliance and other regulatory issues. So it makes it super cumbersome for them to take off. So there are at least threefold opportunities here, right? The businesses need access to data. They need access to the insights. You have to, whatever models that you create for them, you need to make it super consumable. Second, you have to make the manual processes that the IT deals with, that it has to meet the regulatory and the compliance standards. Third, whatever you do, make it something repeatable, consistent, and sustainable so that you can keep doing it again and again. Otherwise, it's not something, everybody is running a marathon, they're not running a sprint here in any business. So with realizing these challenges, we see Databricks as a key partner here in two fronts. One, in being the ideal workspace development, IDE environment, integrated development environment. Second, obviously, as part of the production deployment infrastructure in the AI ML space as well. So first, we think about it from a product mindset, product operating mindset, because picking the right use case, having the focus and adaptable way in which you engage with the business so that you pick the right features that the business would like and want and choose, right? And then having machine learning ops so that it powers whatever you create for this particular product. So those two sort of the mantras to make sure that you're keep this going. With that, Deloitte has a machine learning ops framework. Front and center of that particular framework is making sure any machine learning model that we create is consumable. Making sure that the ROI investment business makes is reaching the business fast. And this works as a clockwork, literally. Starting with data preparation, model building, model deployment, making it operationable, putting it into production, and either you're scaling up or scaling down. All this, along with governance, release management, are part of this framework. On top of this framework is what we want to apply, the talent and roles that we need, the good manufacturing processes or good practices and tools, right? So it's sort of the foundations over which the right talent, right process, and right peoples we would want to apply, right? The roles and responsibilities breathe the oxygen into this framework, right? Because in most places, it's not just the data scientists who are part of the solution. Data scientists build the models, and that's pretty much it. But we have to work with the data engineers, have to work with the business owners, the cloud, and the IT specialists. All talents, cross-functional talents need to come together. And especially the business owners have to be part of this particular cohort, and they have individual roles to perform. So in any system that we define, these roles are super critical. And the green lines that you see here indicate the current, these could be the manual processes, but these indicate the lines that need to be automated within the system. And these currently follow the GXP is something that we refer to in the pharma space. It's called the good manufacturing practices or good practices as such that are automated through the MLOps framework. So we talked about the foundations, and I did mention about the roles and responsibilities that are involved through the different talent models. And obviously, there is a process. To this is added different tools. We use Databricks as our integrated development environment. I mentioned this before. And there are two parts to this when we talk about AI and machine learning, data science. One is the experimentation and model building part. The second is the deployment to production and the lifecycle management part. So when you take the model building part, there's a different model building frameworks that we leverage, be it PyTorch, MLlib, that's within Databricks as well, or TensorFlow. And the experimentations are tracked using MLflow, which is a very key ingredient in making sure that we are able to do the hyperparameter tuning and being able to track the experiment or any of the model retraining as we get along the way. We also introduced Kubeflow because it's key, especially for large language models, to be able to deploy at scale, especially when you have to have certain billion parameter models that need to be deployed in Kubernetes containers and whatnot, right? So in those kind of scenarios, we had to be flexible in being able to integrate into the ecosystem. And in the production deployment, again, in many cases, and I'll talk to you about it in my use cases, we had used Databricks as our endpoint server, but it have been flexible in using in certain scenarios, like SageMaker as an endpoint, or KF serving as an endpoint, while all throughout, we used MLflow as our model registry, model monitoring, and the drift control system. So even though you can use different endpoint servers, MLflow became the critical place where we tracked the model all throughout. So that was the consistent piece all throughout our solution. So with that, let me, oops. So talked about MLOps here, coming to the product-based approach. So most of you must have heard that AI is not general purpose yet. There's nothing like general knowledge in AI yet, although there's an ambition towards it. AI is very focused. So here in we have focused our AI and this particular solution towards R&D in pharma into clinical domain, right? And in here, we have focused it towards the language-based AI solutions, right? And what does that mean, right? It's being able to take languages like understanding, processing, and generation. So processing is something like reading, right? Like in a document, if you see a particular drug name, like it could be Tylenol or Metacin, Crocin, or you see drug names like that, you're reading a drug name and understanding this is a drug name, that is processing. You're just picking up, and you may have heard of named entity recognition, just looking at a word and saying, okay, this is a dog, this is a cat, okay, this is an animal, something like that. So that is processing. And that comes under like something NLP. You may have heard of something like NLP in the general vocabulary. Understanding is getting the context. When you read something, you get the context and you have comprehension. That's like patient took Tylenol and had a headache. Patient had headache and took Tylenol. So did the patient take Tylenol because he had a headache? Did Tylenol cure the headache or cause the headache? As a human being, we are able to understand, because I had headache, I took Tylenol, right? So that comprehension of context on why that medication was taken, or was the medication was the reason why the headache was caused, is understanding. And the generation part is something where the AI reading a document is either in its own word translating it, or summarizing it, or creating or responding to it. Like you would have seen that in like translation services, or summarization services, or in a chatbot where you are able to generate response for a particular Q&A, right? So generation kind of services, right? So in the product, we have created 3 building blocks where you're able to process, understand, and generate. And these are 3 critical pieces in our product and solution, right? And any product is defined by its users. Our business users are very seamless. They experience this just through the application. They just reap the benefits of it. It's totally seamless to them because this is a service. This is model as a service. And they get the benefits through the applications through which they are able to leverage the service. So it's totally seamless to them. The app developers and engineers embed this service into their applications, and it helps improve their productivity. It accelerates their development timeline, and they move on. The data scientists they don't do the scratch builds. It develops their community, and they are able to use this platform to keep building on top of features. So we are pretty much, we are using this as a iterative development, and it's a win-win situation for all 3 types of developers and users, right? So let me deep dive into 3 specific solutions, use cases that we have developed for our customers using this structure as such, right? So the first use case is called medical slide review, where this was for one of the customers in our medical affairs team. The problem statement was in being able to review several thousand pages of product information. The product information was like the products were drugs, obviously. It contained a lot of information related to their treatment about that and the treatment-related efficacies, right? So in that particular thing, they want to make sure that the scientific information that was represented across multiple slides were extremely accurate, and they were never misrepresented. And typically, the human had to review across several pages and make sure that this information was very accurate. So we created a multimodal AI solution, which means a combination of NLP, language processing, as well as vision AI to review graph, images, tables, as well as text, and perform qualitative review of the content and find exact matches or partial matches of the content and provide us a report and provide QC of this. So it helped save about 20,000 plus hours of the reviewer's time and had a very high adoption rate because it was a very easy to use solution for them as such. And the components, and because of this component-based architecture, these components we have been able to use in many other document and QC reviews. Oops. So how does this work, right? So this particular solution of it, as you see, Databricks again is the front and center of this, and I'm showing the entire pipeline here because this has, obviously it has a front end. It is in the, it is in the hyperscaler AWS architecture. The key differentiator for this particular solution is like Databricks, I mentioned to you this has to review thousands of slides, right? The first part of the solution is to take about all these thousands of slides have to be OCR'd in, right? The thousands of slides are OCR'd in, and the first part of the job is to be able to partition and shard that the Spark job. The first part is being able to process the thousand slides into multiple parallel jobs and be able to actually parallelize it. We tried the same job in even in Kubernetes container clusters. It was never as fast as how we are able to perform this, how well that Spark did the job. We tried this whether in other parts. We have not been this successful, especially that the first piece of taking our PDFs or slides, because we have both PDFs, we have slides, and performing this OCR and performing this initial part of the comparisons and processing of the files before we even give it to the AI, right? That part, we found Databricks to be super fast and super optimized. And then obviously we host the models, the multimodal AI model on Databricks. So in this, we found it extremely optimal, this particular architecture being super optimal for us. The second use case that I wanted to mention and talk about is plain language summaries. This use case was for our global publishing services in taking complex medical documents and converting them. These complex medical documents are typically written for research communities, and it is written for a PhD level kind of audience, right? Taking them and making it readable for someone with a middle school level education, or even someone, your grandmother should be able to read it, as simple as that. So, and mainly they wanted to help improve health literacy, improve patient engagement, because if they read that study, they will come and join the clinical studies and help improve that awareness. And inadvertently, when you have simple communication, people, even within the research community, will start engaging better in that overall process, right? So this particular solution had, again, these documents are about 30 to 50 pages long. It had a huge amount of text. Being able to read these documents, answer some critical questions. The questions are, what is this document about? What is this intuition about this particular study? What is the main treatment efficacy about the study? Where is this being conducted? Who are the participants? What were the adverse events that happened during the study? What are the side effects? What is the methodology of the study? So very key questions getting answered. Taking like a 33-page document and making that into a 500-word succinct summary, and then converting those 500 words into simple language that can be understood by a 5th grader, 8th grader, right? That's the whole. And it involved a complex machine learning and NLP pipeline along with large language models, right? So this is something you wouldn't imagine we would have done it with Databricks, right? People would have thought we would be doing it with SageMaker or completely in a different kind of an architecture. So again, right, we did use a combined architecture because using everything within SageMaker would have been extremely expensive. And we found for a very large language model, which one of the models had billion parameters, we did use SageMaker because that one required it. But for most of the other stuff, we did manage, we did do with Databricks. And for only one of the models, we had to use SageMaker, but otherwise, we were able to extremely scale well using our existing solution here with Databricks here. As you see, the same pattern, like the previous use case as well as this particular use case that I'm showing you, extremely repeatable solution architecture pattern that we have been able to replicate across the board. With that, let me, one more use case. So this is my third and last use case that I wanted to talk about, is CSR table automation. A third use case is CSR stands for clinical study reports. Clinical study reports are like 200-page documents. These are dossiers, large dossiers, which contain a lot of information about a study that needs to be submitted to FDA. Medical writers prepare these reports for every phase of the clinical study. These reports have about 33 to 40 tables in different domains. These tables are like about patient demographics. There are tables about adverse events that happened during the study, the exposure data, the lab tests that were carried out, efficacy data. There's a lot of intense information about everything that happens as a drug is developed by pharma companies. And it takes a lot of hours of medical writers to write these reports. So we leveraged, again, natural language processing, ML, AI, to create tables. We automated the table generation, saves about 50 to 60 hours per medical writer, improves efficiency. Obviously, the goal of this is to make this faster for the medical writers so that they can create these dossiers faster, get the reports to the FDA as soon as possible, right? And overall improve their productivity, obviously improve the ability to get the drugs to market faster, right? So the solution involved key ingredients is being able to extract information from PDFs, do source-to-target mapping, leverage NLP for metadata extraction from these unstructured documents, and being able to generate tables that will be embedded inside these CSR documents. Again, a similar solution architecture pattern that we leveraged, having Databricks in the center. Yeah, we developed our IDEs, again, Databricks, and then our job and deployment engine is also Databricks within the AWS ecosystem. That's how we developed this. So pretty much, one second. So that brings me to the end here. So the key takeaways, I talked about 3 different use cases that touched upon processing of data, unstructured data, understanding of unstructured data, and also about generation of content using unstructured data, right? We follow 2 key philosophies here, right? One is being able to use our product-based approach, because the focus and adding features based on a particular theme helps to make sure that we are super aligned to business, and we keep adding features on top of features, which helps us to accelerate in the direction for the business and adapt to that. And obviously, ML Ops helps us to keep powering whatever we need to business and then move things to production as fast as we can without making it cumbersome for IT, and stay on top of things for regulation and compliance. And most of all, in most of the use cases, the key thing that we also have is like, either we are doing it for medical writers or for the agency writing team, where there's always a human in the loop, right? Because anything that we do with AI also, it has a human-centric approach. So it's always the human and machine working together, because that's what makes change and adoption and sustenance of whatever we are doing something that is going to be something that's going to be absorbed by the organization, makes this change possible, right? With that thought, I would probably, I'll stop here, and I'm open for questions, and I know we have a very small audience. I think we can take the next few minutes to discuss and.
Thank you very much, Subhadra. Any questions? We have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Hi. Did you explore any of the AWS native solutions for any of the document processing, like Textract or Comprehend, or I guess some of the overlapping solutions that might be available in the environment?
Yeah, I think whatever it is, it's much more expensive. I think whatever we have is far more accurate and better than those.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance. Please remember to review and rate the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, folks, for attending.